Now pay attention to what we are talking. The Eastern wisdom, when I say you, it was 10,000 years old. So in those days, the masters crypted the masses like a zip file. And those zip files in Sanskrit language were transferred to the students, then they become the teacher. And so the teacher, those students get the same message as it was taught 10,000 years ago. So the message which I'm going to talk is still the 10,000 years old because it is written in the cryptic, compressed verse in Sanskrit. Satsangatve nisasangatvam, nisasangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischaltatvam, nischaltatve jivanamukti. There are 4 lines in it. We will understand it today. So it says that listening and learning leads to detachment. Detachment leads to freedom from the delusion. Delusion causes the suffering. And when there is a freedom from the delusion, that leads to steadiness of the mind. And the steadiness of the mind changes the entire life. Then we are eligible to discover permanent peace and happiness, love and wisdom. In short, that is the translation. Now we have to understand, without sleeping, you have to pay attention. So understand that what is the difference between the normal conversation and this type of a conversation. What happens, in this type of a conversation, when a teacher of the Eastern wisdom talks, they are totally focused on to help the student, help the seeker to do the self-inquiry, to start thinking why I have those anxiety, stress and suffering, and how I can get rid of the anxiety, duality, problem and the suffering. How should I live a life of permanent peace and happiness? Are you listening? It is always good you keep on doing the deep, silent, slow breathing. By that way, your level of awareness will continue. Let us see whether you can do it. In normal conversation, what happens? In normal conversation, we are just doing a guessing. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. Okay, do you want a cup of tea? Yes, I want. No, I don't want. We have just a vague conversation in normal talk when you meet someone. The moment you meet in a session, listening and learning from the listening is very important. It's not a normal conversation. We talk of the self, we talk of the peace, we talk of love, we talk of wisdom. That is the way this session continues. So I pick up every time I pick up one principle and then I talk about it. You see that I don't waste your time. Just a few minutes, I ask you, how are you? And then I continue. So it's very important for a coach and a teacher in the Eastern wisdom that we should be mindful so that you get the maximum out of a session. We are always more concerned about the person attending the session. But if the student is not ready, then what the teacher has to do? So,
Is the other thing?
no, we always inspire and motivate. The way I motivate Isabella, the way I motivate Eric, the more I'm motivating you. I have no way to get angry or upset. Every time I see that how I can motivate and inspire you to live a life of peace and happiness and creativity. That is the goal of listening and learning. That is known as a satsang. So the purpose of the talk is learning how to grow, how to realize your real self, which is of the nature of peace and happiness. Now, normal conversation is for the entertainment, for the socializing, for gossip, for business. You already see when you talk to your kids or you talk to Eric, more or less it is just more or less a gossip. Oh, you did this thing and I did this thing. No, you should not do this and I should not do it. So we are not talking of those things. Normal conversation. So the listening and learning, this satsang, which is known as a satsang, involves deep introspection into the life essential question. You are intelligent, you are wise, you are beautiful, and still you have problems daydreaming, and you have weird, every day you have a disturbed sleep. You don't ask this question to yourself, and you continue the journey. That will take a toll on your body and the mind, and also on the relationship. You want the relationship to improve. That is why you are in stress. Because of the stress, you don't sleep, so your sleep is disturbed. The next day, you are more disturbed and you are still seeking a good relationship. How it is possible? So you have to take care of yourself. And you have got an opportunity. Who knows? If your Eric didn't meet you, you should not have met me. So maybe if this type of life continues, then you will depend on the pills. And there will be a relapse and more challenges. So what is important? So our teacher in the Eastern wisdom, we say that we inspire every seeker to have a truth-seeking attitude. Every teacher, the Eastern wisdom inspires, no, you should have a truth-seeking attitude. But normal conversation can sometimes it's always casual. It is distracted. It is ego-driven. When it is ego-driven, then we have a conflict. So here it is not ego-driven. It's a healthy conversation that how we should improve. That is why you should pay attention. Why I said in this, which is known as a satsang, you should pay attention. You should be attentive, fully present and attentive, so that your habitual and impulsive nature can change. Are you there with me?
Yes.
Yes. So in this Eastern wisdom, satsang or listening and learning, this conversation creates a vibration of the wisdom, positivity, provided you are listening and contemplating and reflecting. It also gives you a moment of silence. You give a shock to the mind. Oh, why I'm suffering? From today I will not. And that is how it starts changing our life. It may happen in few sessions. It may not happen. It may happen in. It may start happening little later, but it has to happen. So this company in which we both are in one company of this Eastern wisdom, we are in a company because I am passing on that knowledge. I am passing on the knowledge of the real self. I want you to get rid of the false self. It's okay. So we learn here through the contemplation and reflection. So this company or this conversation is all about wisdom, all about knowledge, all about clarity about our life, all about purpose of life, all about how to end the suffering, whatever the kind of the suffering you have. If you have any question, you are always welcome to ask the question. You're always welcome. So that is the meaning of this, what we say normally, the satsang. This type of conversation. So I'm not imposing anything on you. I'm just helping you to understand this is another way to live your life. You simply change a little bit of your mind and emotions and you start living your life. This conversation gives an opportunity to connect with the teacher. So once you connect with the teacher, you understand it, you apply these principles in your personal, professional, and social life, and that is going to bring the change from the day one. After listening, you say, okay, this weird guy bored me, and then your mind goes back to the same stuff again, and you are into the same. That is not the way of listening here. It involves listening, learning, asking questions to clarify all the doubt. That is the meaning of listening and learning. It creates a very positive mindset. That is what we are talking. We are not criticizing anyone. We are not blaming anyone. We say, let us look at our own mind. Let us see how we can change our emotion. Sorry. So that is why we have set a regular time and a place to meet virtually so that it can help your mind and emotions. And the teacher in the Eastern wisdom is always ready to do that. They are always focused on one thing, how to bring an end in suffering, how to bring an end to the suffering from the life of a seeker. So if the teacher is responsible, the student should also be responsible. If the student is not responsible, then it will not happen. Ultimately, you have to change yourself. You have to take an action. You have to take an action. So that is why I gave you the practice in the beginning, so that you should feel some relaxation and calmness. And then you are able to raise your level of awareness so that you can listen to me attentively with awareness. When you listen attentively and it goes deep inside your mind, you will find your impulsive and instinctive nature calms down. Are you there with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Feeling sleepy?
No.
No. So what happens in that satsang, what we say the conversation, it provides a direct contact with the knowledge. It helps you to raise your awareness. And the Eastern wisdom speaks about the profound principles of Eastern wisdom. It gives you an insight, deeper insight. So the teacher always shares that deeper insight so that your mind, your impulsive nature of the mind, can change its perspective. So that is why I have said that once you receive the audio file, you listen to these topics again and again and again, and followed by the practice of meditation. By repeat listening, your mind is listening alone, and that mind becomes more and more aware. And the moment you have any doubt, you can ask the questions. So attending, listening and learning maintains the momentum of changing your mindset. Irregular practice can dissipate your energy if you are not regular. So repeated exposure means if you are listening and learning, what happens, it reinforces the wisdom and accelerates your growth. You are able to change your mindset. Then you will see you are living in the same situation, condition, and still you are happy. And more the time you spend in listening and learning and practice, it increases the resonance with the calmness and peace. In the beginning, you have to make a self-effort, and after that, it will be just a play and a fun. In the beginning, you need a commitment. The way I commit myself to you, so you have to commit yourself to the knowledge. So what happens now? So as you are listening and learning, you are doing a repeat listening and the practice. Result is detachment. What is detachment? So detachment is not an aversion to the sense objects or to the world. We don't ask you to hate anyone, to react to somebody. We learn how to live in the state of the calmness and the joy in spite of the outer situation is not favorable to you. That is what the detachment is. So you don't get upset by the outer situation, people, and the relations. You are able to maintain your calmness. How when you listen and learn those principles and you contemplate and reflect on those principles by repeat listening and learning, that mindset changes. Then you become immune to the outer situations and conditions. Otherwise, your mind keeps on blaming and complaining and reacting internally. Sometimes you react outwardly. I know you may have been reacting to your daughters very strongly, but then there is no chance of reacting strongly to Eric or other elderly people. Then what happens? Then you are burning inside. Then you are burning inside. So we have to get rid of that. So now see that what happens in attachment, why we are seeking detachment. So when we are attached, I superimpose a greater value on something, on the other person, on a situation, on a condition, on a relationship. So when I superimpose a greater value, either for example on Eric and kids, and then you don't see the expected result, then you are frustrated. First you superimpose a greater value, but you get a return of less value, and then what happens? There is a conflict in your mind, and that conflict in your mind causes the sense of frustration, anxiety, and duality, my friend. Okay. Now sit down. Now you sit down. So we do
I
not.
thought I heard someone knocking.
Yeah, we do not really see the world as it is in attachment. Our mind lives unconsciously and impulsively. And through the impulses and the instinct, we give the interpretation, a wrong interpretation of the world outside. And then you start burning inside. then you have a lot of anxiety all the time. So you live in that frustration and anxiety throughout the day. How can you sleep in the night? That is what is happening. You may not tell me, but I am aware of that. Not that he told me, but because of the way you communicate to me, I can extract the information. So it is happening. So you see, first step is the satsang, and satsang helps you to get rid of the attachment. Attachment is depending on the external things for your happiness, at least for 2 or 3 weeks. The moment you get anxious and you're frustrated, find out the moment of attachment and get rid of it. Tell your mind that, I'm not attached to anyone, so let me see. I should not be attached. I should not expect anything from anyone. Let me live my happy life. Mind, calm down. So that is the power of detachment. So what happens? Detachment means you are decreasing dependency on external things for your happiness. What are those things? That may be your kids, that may be the person, people, relationship. You maintain your calmness instead of increasing the dependency. Then what is going to happen? Gradually it will take a couple of times, but gradually you will recognize that dependency is causing the anxiety and the reaction. And once you get rid of this dependency, you start having a joy and relaxed body and the mind. Attachment is an unhealthy condition of the mind. It is an unhealthy condition of the mind that distorts your perception. And when you grow detachment, you see the world as it is. You don't get carried away. You don't feel upset. Whether you are more and more attached to any person in relationship, whether you are attached to the body, whether you are attached in relationship, where sometimes we get attached to the things and we lose that thing, again the problem comes. One thing is sure, I have always been telling, attachment, which is dependency, I depend on people, on situation, on condition to be happy. And as long as you depend, you will remain frustrated. You will remain anxious. There is no one which can help you get rid of. Now we have done listening and learning these principles, we have understood. So as you continue listening and learning, not only in a session, but you do the repeat listening. That is why I send you the audio file. So I told you last time also, even if you're lying down, you just switch on and have a repeat listening. So repeat listening and learning stimulates your intellect. You start thinking about it, and that will result in the detachment. And detachment ultimately leads to freedom from the delusion. What is delusion? Delusion is that I have a false assumption with a false identification. Where is false identification? Isabella, you sit there and study. You are in the kitchen, and then you see that Isabella started playing. And then you start becoming angry over her. So that your anger is a kind of delusion. It's a false assumption. So we create many false assumptions, about people, about situation, about relationship. And if we live in those false assumptions, we are going to have a tremendous suffering in our life. So when we have a detachment, as the attachment goes away, the delusion also goes away. Attachment and detachment, attachment and aversion are the impurities of the mind. We should just remember, at the moment you get upset, angry, and agitated, oh, I am into the influence of attachment, let me get rid of it. You say in your mind, you think of that. If you don't, how can you think of it if you don't do the repeat listening? You will forget it. You will not remember in the beginning. So that is why the repeat listening and constant practice, regular practice. That's why I told you, you do the practice in the morning and evening. So what happens? A kind of detachment comes, and from the detachment you start getting rid of the delusion. That delusion is living in the mind. That is why I have to listen. Why I have to listen? I have to acquire the knowledge and understanding, so that your intellect will pick up, oh, this is, I'm living in a delusion. Let me get out of it. Let me calm down. Let me not react. Let me not be frustrated. So what happens? You enter into freedom of a delusion. What happens in the freedom of delusion? There is a clarity of perception. You are detached, then you see the things objectively, and when you see the things objectively, you have a sense of no delusion. What happens to the mind? The mind is calm. What happens to the ego? The ego dissolves. What happens to the conditioning? You break the conditioning internally, but it will take some time. If you are doing a repeat listening and learning, you are understanding these principles, you are doing the practice, it will definitely happen. It will definitely happen. Your mind will get a kind of steadiness. So when you are a freedom from a delusion, there is a clarity of perception, there is an equanimity of the mind. You disidentify your ego. It is the ego that hurts me. Why didn't he or she listens to me? I only expected this, and even my expectations are not met. This is all about the ego. Let me not expect anything. Let me take care of each and every one. But if I keep the expectation inside because of the attachment, and still I claim that I don't expect anything, it will frustrate you more. That is hypocrisy. You are internally seeking a lot of expectations, but you don't express it outside. So it will cause more problem to you. It will dearrange your mind. It will disturb your sleep. One reason of those weird talking in the dreams is because of this. You may say, I don't expect anything, but internally there is expectation. Outside you don't express it. So you are already entering into a conflict with yourself. You are fighting with yourself. That is one reason those suppressed emotions are released in the dream during the night. You have to observe, you have to understand yourself. Or you just want to continue, oh, these weird dreams in the talks are wonderful, let me continue. So what happens, then you remain unattached to these things. So that internal conflict and the outer situation, they are left outside, and you start living into that state of the calmness. Calmness will instantly come. Calmness will come. So you see what we did? We said satsang, listening and learning. Our conversation is all about the growth, evolution, rise in consciousness, discovering peace and happiness, getting rid of all the anxiety, duality, and a conflict. So when we listen and learn these principles, the first result is the detachment. Second result, from the detachment, we become free from the delusion. And once we are free from the delusion, this mind, crazy mind, becomes peaceful mind. Peaceful mind means it becomes a steady mind. Steady mind means that it does not trust its ego. It does not react. It remains calm. Clarity comes. That mind is able to live the life in peace and happiness. So we have a stage. First is listening and learning. Then you repeat listening and learning by yourself regularly, followed by the practice, and you are doing it regularly. Then you will discover now you are detached. There is a sense of detachment. So once you have a sense of detachment, you will see that you start getting asleep better, you are less fatigued and tired, you are less reactive, you don't hold anything, you don't hold your emotion inside. I know you are holding those emotions inside. What should I do? Nobody is listening to me. Nobody listen to you. Drop your expectations. When you drop your expectations from the detachment, you move to the freedom from the delusion. When you move from the freedom from the delusion, then what happens? Your mind naturally becomes steady. Then it takes everything just outside. It doesn't allow any situation, people, and relationship to dictate you. But to reach to that state, I have to have a discipline. Self-discipline. You have to impose a discipline to yourself. No, I have to do the practice. I have to listen to it. What this BL guy is talking about. If you are not listening and if you are not thinking, it will not help you. It will not help you. So once the mind gets steady, that is a very higher target in life. Now the mind gets a steadiness. A sense of steadiness is there all the time. In that state of steadiness of the mind, you listen to higher principles. Why? And then you contemplate all those principles. Why? Then you meditate. You do the higher meditation. Why? To discover your real self. When you discover your real self, that real self is of the nature of peace and happiness. That real self is the nature of peace and happiness, love and wisdom. First time you recognize and realize the purpose of life is met. Then you may be in any situation, any condition with anyone. You are not carried away, you are not frustrated. You don't feel bad about anything. Internally, you are living with that energy, peace, and happiness, love, and wisdom. That is the importance of this Eastern wisdom.